To a climate clash. Is the president about to get out his pen and strike a deal with the UN?
We're pushing to broker the kind of an agreement that would tangibly have an impact on reducing the causes of climate change.
Well, don't look now. Some here say this latest end run around Congress is going to put U.S. jobs on ice. Are they right? Hi, everybody. I'm Liz McDonald in for David Asman. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus with Steve Forbes, Rich Karlgaard, Carrie Sheffield, Mike Ozanian, Bruce Japsen, and John Tammy. John, with this new international accord, it would be voluntary for naming and shaming countries into meeting commitments. Would this be bad for U.S. jobs?
Of course it would be bad for jobs, simply because it would be bad for profits. Oil is the cheapest commodity known to mankind when it comes to powering the economy. But if companies are forced into the kinds of energies that don't work and that are very expensive, that make zero economic sense, that is going to reduce profits and it's going to repel investment into other parts of the world. When you don't have investment, you do not have job creation.
All right, Bruce, let's set this up for the viewer. What's going on is the president is bypassing a gridlock Congress to get an international climate change accord, where basically countries would be named and shamed if they do not meet their commitments to reduce greenhouse gases. Listen, we all want to reduce pollution, but the fact is there is no consensus on the part of scientists about global warming related to greenhouse gases just yet, and not even Americans have consensus about it, too. Look at this poll. It says 63% of Americans think the scientific debate about global warming is not over. Bruce, your thoughts?
Well, I guess if we're just going to be naming and shaming companies, I mean, you get shareholders doing that at shareholders meetings, so I don't know if this is something that necessarily rises to the level of a treaty that needs Senate approval. So I just don't know that we know yet that if it would kill jobs, because we don't really know how big of a deal it is. And some of the stories out there didn't even have administration officials going on the record. So I don't really see that it's that big of a deal at this point.
Rich Karlgaard, isn't the issue, though, that the U.S. could be the only country named and shamed into reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and no other country is, and then that could hurt U.S. jobs? What do you think?
Well, actually, Lizzie, there's a great experiment out there. The Wall Street Journal had a piece earlier this week on Germany, and Germany has embarked on this multi-year green project, and what it's doing is driving up energy costs. One of the things Germany does best is manufacturing, and it's pricing itself out of manufacturing. So the experiment is out there, and it's not good.
Steve, here's the thing. Really, we're going to name and shame. It's going to be an honor system where countries have to voluntarily, this is the president's going along with this international idea, voluntarily say they're going to cut greenhouse gas emissions. If they don't, there's going to be some repercussions. But really, are you going to really jawbone China? China's been doing currency manipulations. They've been doing import taxes. They can't be jawboned into anything. And they've got an economy half the size of the U.S. and twice the greenhouse gas emissions. What do you think?
Liz, this is all about politics and theatrics for the November elections. They know that this treaty has absolutely no force whatsoever. They're doing everything they can through decrees and regulatory perversion of the law to do what they want to do on so-called climate change. And so this is all about November elections. And so to take it seriously, we shouldn't have to take it seriously because they're doing everything they can. In terms of shaming, yeah, we see how shamed Putin is. We see how shamed these other barbarians around the world. We see how shamed China is. Forget about it. It's all about politics, pure and simple, which is the only thing this administration knows how to do.
Yeah, here's the thing, Mike Ozanian, and, you guys are all making great points. Mike, you've been talking a lot about this, how the president, the government picks and chooses winners, and then the president picks and chooses what laws to enforce. You've talked about that with health reform. He ignores tax reform. He ignores Simpson-Bowles entitlement reform on Social Security. But what would this do? Let's think this through. If we go ahead with this, if the White House signs on to this, the U.S. has to be named and shamed into doing greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, what would be the impact on U.S. jobs and the economy?
Well, I think it caused some jobs in the U.S., EMAC, to be shipped overseas because particularly urging market economies aren't going to care about being shamed into anything, especially from President Obama, who has no credibility whatsoever. So jobs in the U.S. that were going to be here are going to go overseas because what those countries care about is economic growth, unlike the President of the United States, who, as Steve pointed out, cares about political theatrics.
Yeah, Carrie, what do you think?
Well, I agree. This will cause job flight, but it will also hurt the consumer. It will jack up the price of energy. And guess who is hurt the most? Poor families. This president says he cares about poor people. This is going to hit them the hardest. Look, this is essentially Kyoto 2.0. President Clinton tried to shove that down Congress's throat. Congress voted by a vote of 95-0 to say no, Kyoto will destroy our economy. So this is not a fringe issue for conservatives to say we are opposed to this. The Senate is controlled by Democrats right now. This could be pulled up right now on the floor of the Senate, and it won't because the Senate at least understands that this will hurt their own states.
John, go ahead, Steve.
By the way, Lizzie,
Yeah.
in terms of emissions, the United States has the best record in the world of any developed economy. So they should.
What do you mean by that? Why?
Ours has gone down because of natural gas, which is a clean energy, which this administration is doing its best to throttle until there's an election coming up when they change their rhetoric. But their policies are anti-fracking, and you see it around the country. So in terms of emissions, we are down. Other countries are up. And so we're doing a good job. You never know it from what the president says.
Yeah, John Tenney, what do you make of that?
Well, yeah, obviously we are the most advanced in terms of environmental advances, as Steve points out, and we are because we're the most economically advanced country. If you do something that's anti-growth, you're going to get less in the way of environmental enhancements. And after that, investment goes to where it's treated best. These kinds of ideas would be anti-investment because they're anti-profit. If you want to hurt the economy and hurt the environment, impose these UN-style ideas.
Yeah, you know, Bruce, the point is, I mean, this whole international accord, by the way, Congress has a power, is supposed to sign off on any types of international accord. This would bypass U.S. Congress because the White House is deciding it's, quote, dysfunctional. You know, is this more bureaucratic make-work, these kinds of, you know, fake voluntary agreements that really don't get at the heart of the matter, where you could have market forces fixing climate change and doing more to reduce pollution?
Well, I think you've got a point there. I mean, it just all depends on what we're talking about here. If it's a treaty that requires a Senate approval, obviously, you know, that's going to be the voice of Congress. However, if it's just something that's an agreement that other countries are going to agree to, then wouldn't that level the playing field and be a good thing? I don't know that we know it's going to be a treaty.
You know, Bruce brings up an interesting point. What other countries are doing right now? I mean, Australia is already watering down its climate change laws. And so we've seen that from country to country. I'm not sure how this would work. What do you think?
Well, as I said, Germany has done this, and all it's doing is driving up its manufacturing costs and making itself less competitive in a very competitive global economy. I just think this name and shame thing is a real window into the soul of Obama. At times I think he thinks he's running up some politically correct liberal arts university rather than the world's major superpower.
Yeah, Mike Ozani, what do you think?
I think it's like a temper tantrum that a child would throw. You know, when he's presented with science that shows that it's not clear exactly how much humans cause climate change, he says, debate's been settled, it's over. When he tries to present legislation to Congress and Congress won't pass it, he says, I'll just bypass you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, my 7-year-old daughter does better than that.
Carrie, go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, the whole thing is we don't change the climate. What we can affect is water, and clean air. And we have the technology to do that. We should focus on real things to get real things done, especially in China and India. The technology is there to do